Hmm. It took me a long time to finally get around to watching some of M. Night Shyamalan's films. I watched Unbreakable a few years back, but I hadn't watched stuff like The Village or The Shining, The Sixth Sense, and whatever. To the point that some of them I had to find on Disney Plus because a lot of them don't have Blu-ray releases. And so I figured before I watched Old, I'd catch up on a bunch of his films. I haven't watched all of them. I'm not going to put myself through probably Lady in the Water or After Earth. And definitely not Last Airbender again. Yikes. But I'm still yet to watch The Visit, which I'm interested in. And I did like Old, to be fair. A lot of people didn't. I did like it. I thought it was quite fun. So there comes to a point where with a film like his films initially were like, oh my god, twist, it's always what's the big twist. That was like what drew people to watch movies in cinema in like the late 90s to the early 2000s, a movie with a twist. Because if you have a mystery movie, it has to have a twist, or it has to be something like really creative, like Seven, or basically Zodiac, anything David Fincher. Anyway, so there's always, I guess, some kind of discourse. Movies with a twist, are they worth watching, especially if you know what the twist is? Now, this can happen in two degrees. Either A, 15 to 20 years has passed and everyone knows the twist to The Sixth Sense, which is probably the only film I'm going to spoil if you haven't watched it. That twist obviously being that he says dead people. You think that's the twist. That is the first twist. Because that doesn't happen until like halfway through the movie that he reveals that he sees dead people. The actual twist, of course, which you probably know, is that Bruce Willis's character is dead the whole time. He's a ghost. And so there's this element to the film where it's like, me personally, who doesn't know the "I see dead people" quote? It's iconic. And who doesn't know that Bruce Willis is dead? I didn't for a long time, and then I obviously watched it last year. I already knew all the stuff, and it's like, but you watch it, and it's such a masterfully crafted film that it's like, yeah, okay, it works even with the twist, Like, you can watch it, you can rewatch it. Watching it the first time, obviously, that twist would be fucking mind-blowing, But then rewatching it, or watching it having known the twist, I think it's different, I guess, maybe having known the twist and not having seen it before, because you go into it, and if you know just the basic element of Bruce Willis is dead, he sees dead people, whatever, you go into it and you see how it unfolds, and it's like, oh, he doesn't say that he sees dead people for, like, the first hour of the movie, and then the whole Bruce Willis is dead isn't revealed till, like, the last 10 minutes. So, like, it's kind of insane in a way. And I think it's such a well written and well directed film that obviously there's a lot of elements of, oh, you can notice the part where like Bruce Willis's character is dead and stuff like that, like when he's sitting at the dinner table with his wife and whatever, and she's like not reciprocating anything because she's there as an anniversary of their marriage despite the fact that he's dead. So like there's elements like that work really well. But there's obviously like the big question as a whole. Can you watch a movie that has a twist, whether it's been spoiled for you or whether you've seen it before? And I think realistically with the craft of filmmaking, it's really about how effectively the twist is executed and how enjoyable the movie is pre and post twist. A film like Hot Fuzz starts off as an action comedy. But like it doesn't have much action. It's more of a commentary, a spoof on those movies and how regular life isn't always like that. And then when the twist is revealed, it's like, okay, now we're in that territory where everything that we've talked about can now be executed. He's seen Bad Boys 2, he's seen Point Break. He can become the character that those are in those films because he realizes he's in this world that's just as insane. So, it's completely logical as a step, and it's such a fun movie to watch. You get great characters, some fun comedy, some great dynamics for the first half of the film, and then post twist, it's like, of course, the twist isn't that everyone's getting murdered. The twist is how many murderers are there, and like why they're doing it. But it's not even they're doing it because they're evil. I love it. It's such a fun twist. It's like it's a joke on twist culture, which I think was like the perfect like epitome of, okay, we've been dealing with fucking M. Night Shyamalan movies and big twist movies for 10 years. Now we get to like the complete reversal of it, like basically a Deadpool in the MCU, in the Marvel comic universe stuff, where like you have a self-referential parody type stuff. You know, like that's how formulas go by. You know, to reset itself, you have to first self-parody. You have to make fun of and demean it, and then evolve from there. Much like with the Western, with Blazing Saddles and whatever. It's a proven film cycle. It doesn't always continue. Something like Deadpool was like, oh yeah, but we're going to make a sequel, and then all these other movies are still happening, so it kind of, oh shit, it tries to be fresh, but then becomes stale very quickly. But then something like Hot Fuzz is like, oh yeah, we're parodying like these high-octane Michael Bayfield fucking action movies, but also like the twist culture of M. Night Shyamalan, but it's not really a straight parody. It's referential of those styles of films before becoming that style of film for the fun of it. And that's a film that I watch a lot of the time. I watched it recently for the obvious 22nd of Feb 2022 stuff, you know, the whole what year is your birthday, you know, when's your birthday, the 22nd of Feb, what year, every year, and the fact that 22, the 2, 22, the palindrome stuff, whatever the fuck it is, so iconic. I'm like, I'm reserving that day for Hot Fuzz. I don't usually do that. I don't usually reserve an anniversary day, like watching the pilot of Twin Peaks on the day that in the show it started. You know, like, oh, it's March whatever, and this is what, you know. I'm like, I don't care about that stuff. Like, anniversary stuff isn't huge for me. Like, I mean, I guess obviously real world anniversaries to some degree, like, you know, a birthday or an anniversary of a relationship, that kind of stuff. But like, something that falls on a particular date, it's not really my kind of jam. Like, I watched Scott Pilgrim for its 10th anniversary because I love that film. I watch it like every year. But Hot Fuzz, I hadn't watched it since like I think my 21st or 22nd birthday. I'm pretty sure it was my 21st. I was like, I want to watch one film on my 21st that I haven't watched for a few years, or for a year or so, and I wanted to really enjoy it. And I just watched Hot Fuzz. It was a weird choice for me. It's not even my favorite film. I just wanted to watch it. So I decided to watch it on that day, and I watched it and I loved it. Of course, I've been watching it for years. I think I've been watching it since maybe 2009, because it was like on TV. We saw the first half, got to the point where the botanist gets murdered, and then it was like 10 o'clock, we have to go to bed because we're children. We shouldn't have even been watching that movie. And at that time, it was just action comedy. Hey, this is great. We didn't even know the twist yet. We didn't get it till like a year later. My dad bought the first and second film for my birthday, like first and second, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, for my birthday. And then we double featured the both, and we're like, oh my god, Hot Fuzz is so good. And so it's one of those things where it's like, I wanted to watch it, and I rewatched it, you know, for the 22nd or the 22nd of whatever. And I hadn't seen it again for like 2 years, and I was like, obviously it still stands up a lot. It's not like an amazing thing of like, oh my god, I had no idea this film stood up so well. But it's like, some of Shyamalan's films and Hot Fuzz are like great examples of films that, despite having a twist, work so efficiently without, you know, that being a big problem. Like, I feel like Unbreakable doesn't quite handle its twist as well, because I guess its twist is that Bruce Willis was a superhero the whole time. Like, that's kind of the weird elements. Like, say like Split, the twist is that it's in the universe of Unbreakable. Not a great twist, but it still blew a lot of people's minds, because obviously they watched Unbreakable when it came out 20 years earlier. I was a teenager, I didn't even watch Split till I bought the Blu-ray, because I didn't give a shit. I bought it because I was like, I like James McAvoy, and then I cared more about Anya Taylor-Joy being in the film than fucking Bruce Willis showing up at the end. But I already knew the twist, because I think 5 days after the film came out, someone posted on YouTube, I'm like, the twist of Split, and I was like, oh, and I watched it, and I'm like, I haven't even watched Unbreakable, why would I give a shit? I don't think I'd watched Unbreakable by that stage. I didn't know the relevance, like the importance of it, but I knew of it. But that's also the kind of thing, like, you know, there's this kind of media culture when it comes to reviewing and talking about films where it's like, oh, spoilers for this film that came out 70 years ago, now I'm going to go into it. And like, people getting pissed off at films being spoiled when, again, they've been out for like so many years. Like, if it's a film like The Sixth Sense, like, unfortunately, media parodied that to hell and back with Scary Movie and whatever, but it's like, there are some films that are like that, where their twist is so big and it's what draws everyone to it, that becomes the thing, you know, like seeing Empire Strikes Back. You see it for Star Wars, you don't see it for the fact that the twist is Darth Vader is Luke's father, you know. That's just a fun element that makes it more dramatic, you know. But nowadays, everyone fucking knows that. It's literally a prequel series was made because of it. You know, technically a sequel trilogy was also made because of it. So there kind of comes this point where you're watching these films and it's like, twist culture, obviously there's like, I think like a statute of limitations. How long after a film can come out before you can talk about spoilers and twists and all that kind of stuff. These days it's more or less spoilers with like Marvel movies and comic book stuff, existing properties that have continuing chronologies and stuff, or maybe it's just based on a big property again, like Batman. Like the Batman came out, and everyone's like, "Oh no spoilers, please." I'm thinking, what could you like? I watched the film the day it came out just because my mate asked me to. I'm like, "Fuck it, all right, let's go see it." And I'm like, "What is there to spoil about this movie?" Like, it's not really like. I mean, if you've read some of the comics, there's some stuff that's very like, oh yeah, I've read this one where the Riddler is in it, and that's exactly what happens in the movie. And I kind of knew some bits about that, but like, I didn't expect the final act, but that was like much like one of the existing comics that apparently is quite good. I haven't read much Batman. I've read The Killing Joke, but I have the Long Halloween. And I've only read half of that. Still, that's a me problem, not a you problem. But it's one of those things where it's like, it's a movie where, unlike something like, fucking, any Marvel movie these days where Endgame, oh no, Tony Stark dies, that's a spoiler. Like, sure, because that's an end of the movie thing. That's like a big deal in the movie. He's a big deal in the series. But with the Batman movie, it's like, I'm not going to say anything about a spoiler review, but it's like, I did like the movie, I'll be honest about that. I liked how it was like a detective film and everything, different to most, any other Batman film I've seen. And I'm looking at it thinking, is there really anything to spoil? Like, I think everything's pretty obvious from like the posters to the ad campaign, like, you know, I don't think there's anything that's inherently spoiler anything. Like, there's that one cameo in the film, but even that, it's like, that wasn't even that important to me. It's the one thing that when I watched the film, I'm like, I mean, I guess this is spoiler-wise, but it's like, nothing else. Like, I didn't even give a shit for the cameo being there. I'm like, okay, so this other important character in the Batman mythos just happens to be in this universe already. Cool. I hope they don't do anything with them. Maybe they just show up as like a cameo thing, and that's about it, you know. We don't need another The Dark Knight, so obviously you probably know who the cameo is. Everyone fucking knows who the cameo is. They fucking spoiled it before the movie came out, and I didn't even pay attention to that shit. And it's just like, there are some movies like that these days, where it's not exactly a twist thing, but like, spoiler culture in particular, where it's like, can we talk about this yet? You know, here's my casual YouTube review, then here's my spoiler review. It goes for 25 fucking minutes, and I'm like, why do I need that? You know, the only thing that I'd need for a 25-minute video is like an Easter egg breakdown, and I stopped watching those years ago, because I don't give that much of a shit for comic book movies anymore. You know, unless they're differently made, somewhat artistic, again, much like the Batman, but I just like Matt Reeves, and I like the cast, and I like Batman as a character. So it's like, I don't know, but that's not exactly a twist movie. I mean, sure, it has, because it's a mystery, you know, with detective stuff and whatever, it does have those continual reveals and stuff, but even that, most of it's still based on existing properties and whatever, so for me, it's not exactly like, oh my god, I'm so surprised. I'm like, I don't care, I'm fucking enjoying this movie, it's fun, you know? But yeah, when it comes to twist movies, because I don't want to go much into spoiler movies, because that's kind of how we've evolved. It's not like we have movies that have huge twists anymore. Like, I can't think off the top of my head of a recent movie that's had a gigantic twist. You know, like something that completely changes how you've watched the whole movie. Like, Iron Man dying in Endgame isn't a fucking twist, you know? Like, the 3 Spider-Men being in Spider-Man No Way Home is not a twist, you know? It's just a thing that happens. It doesn't change the rest of the film. A twist changes the dynamic of the film, or how the character perceives the world, or how the audience perceives the whole fucking film. That's the point of a twist, to shock and surprise and to change how you view the film. Most M. Night Shyamalan films have that. His early best works, until Lady in the Water, all have some kind of a twist and all work really efficiently. Some are really open and obvious, something like Unbreakable is the twist is he's a superhero. He's had powers the whole time. The twist in fucking, what was it, the Sixth Sense, Bruce Willis is dead, but the kid also sees dead people, That's two twists for you. Something that, like, the first one makes the film different and makes it more of a horror, which is great. The second film is like, the second twist is like, oh fuck, that changes the whole perception of the film. But then you've got something like The Village, where, I mean, if you haven't seen it, then sure, spoilers, but like that twist just being, again, this is also the expectation or culture of the bigger the twist, the bigger the movie, whatever the fuck. But in this case, it's like, people think it's a crap movie because it's like, oh, the twist is that it's actually set in the modern times and that all these people, like, are just being, like fed to believe that they're in the 18th century or whatever. It's like, because of 9/11, it's like, yeah, sure, it's a great twist. It really works, And it's like, I like what they do and how they utilize it and how it world builds and everything. The monsters aren't actual monsters, just people in costumes, that kind of shit. And it works. And how they feed it into the rest of the film works. I knew that twist going into it to some degree, that it was set during the modern time, but that's not really the twist. The twist, I mean, it kind of is. It's meant to be like a multi-layered twist. It's still set in modern time. There's, where there's, the monsters are actually people in costumes, but the real twist is the fact that they're there because the older people are like, we want to have a secluded area that's away from the world that's been affected by 9/11. But then you've got, what was the next one? Signs? Maybe the Signs was before it, but like, twist in Signs was so subtle. I didn't even fucking get it on my first watch. Because the twist isn't that aliens are real. That's in the whole movie, aliens are real. The twist is that God is real. That's what the fucking twist is. So, yeah, it's kind of insane that it's like, wow, that's such a great twist, because it's like, it doesn't exactly change your perception of the film. It's more of it's a specific character thing. That everything happens for a reason, that God has planned it all. And it's like, okay, that's pretty cool, Like, me being an atheist is like, wow, okay, the fact that they've done that in the movie, pretty rad, especially for a movie with fucking aliens in it. So yeah, But, I don't know, when it comes to twist culture, I think twist culture has died off dramatically. It was huge in the late 90s to the early 2000s. It still happens occasionally. Malignant. That one has a great twist. It's kind of I saw it coming kind of twist, but again, we're so adapted to, like, if there's a twist, I'll know, I can predict it before it happens, There are some movies like that where Scream 2022, who the killers are, the twist is who the killers are. It's always who the killers are, and it's like, yeah, but if you can predict it quite easily, then is it really much of a twist? Does it change the movie that much? It only changes, like, where were the killers in this part, or who killed who? And you got, like, that guy on YouTube who breaks down, like, oh, this person was probably killed by this killer and whatever. And I like those videos, they're fun. That's just like an extra thing, gives you more time to think about it. Like, fuck, that's actually interesting how they did that, or whatever. But that's basically it. Like, slasher movies where they've got a masked villain and they have to unmask the villain. That was huge in the 80s, whether it be like Prom Night and stuff like that. Like, that is one of the few of those really classic slasher films where they actually not just unmask the villain, but it's a twist as to who the villain is, who is the slasher. That and Terror Train, great twist. Terror Train in particular, fantastic twist. I had no idea what it was going into it, and I'd forgotten about it until my mate was like, oh yeah, the twist in Terror Train where this is revealed. I'm like, oh my god, are you kidding me? I'd forgotten that was the twist. Good films, by the way. Prom Night's not as good, but Terror Train's pretty great. But a good double feature with Jamie Lee Curtis, so I'd suggest that. But, like, I think as an overall, because of course twist culture has changed so dramatically, it's always existed, something that will surprise and shock audiences, whether it comes from The Exorcist to, which isn't exactly a heavy twist movie, but, like going from there to where we're currently at, where it's just like spoiler culture and whatever. You know, oh, don't spoil the movie. I don't want to know if the other two Spider-Man show up in the Spider-Man movie, despite the fact that it's so fucking obvious. When I still remember, I've seen that movie twice in theaters. Waste of fucking time the second time, but like the fact that people were surprised. You know, the first time I was watching, I'm like, oh yeah, they're finally showing up. Great. You know, it was obvious it was going to happen. You start with Andrew Garfield's character in the far distance. I'm like, oh yeah, I recognize these suits instantly. And everyone else was like, oh my god, once he came through the portal and was like, look, it's me. And I'm like, I know. And everyone else was like, oh my god, it's him. That's the kind of, really? You know? But also, obviously he's going to be in the fucking movie. But people are like, I don't want to know if he's in the movie. It's like, but he's in the movie. You know that they're in the movie. If they don't do it, then what the fuck's the point of watching it? You know, outside of it just being a bad Marvel movie. But then you got the second time I watched it, and the fact that so many people went fucking insane, like, for just all these characters showing up. Like, I cared more for when people gave a shit that Daredevil was there than when the other Spider-Man showed up. But they were like, oh my god, it's the Spider-Man. Whoa. That's not a twist. It's a spoiler culture, sure, but it's like, yeah, but it's also fucking obvious. Something like fucking Iron Man dying, that's not a twist. That's a spoiler. That's like a shock. Because it's like, okay, I didn't expect that, and it was well earned and well paid off to some degree, you know? I don't know. Just the habit of watching movies these days. I mean, spoiler culture, even in and of itself, it's still a subtle thing that's there. It's always a thing that's there. It gets people in the fucking cinemas to begin with, but of course, when you've got something like, you know, having the pandemic happen and everything, and it kind of removes people from going to watch the cinemas and, you know, going to see movies. And then the whole factor of it, the twist happening, you know, you basically get twist movies, and they're horror movies. You know, Scream 2022, Malignant, Ready or Not. They're all movies that have some kind of a twist. But, like, I don't really, probably other slasher films, probably. I haven't watched as many of recent, not many that I can think of. But those ones have twists that are relevant to the story, that are relevant to how the film works. Of course, Scream is still the classic. It's just a whodunit murder mystery, and who is it whodunit? Who's the killers? Who when they take off their masks, you know, that's the twist. It's who they are. Not exactly why they did it, but usually just who they are. Whereas Malignant's twist is like, fuck, it's fun. Such a fun twist. But yeah, that's a kind of twist where it's like, it does change your perception of the whole movie if you don't already predict the twist, because it's still decently predictable. But yeah, I don't know. Is there any twist movie these days, post, I don't know, 2015, that you think is worth, like, you gotta see it but don't look into it kind of deal? Like Going Blind. That's also a fun thing. Going in blind movies where it's like, there's something that big that happens, or it's crazy as shit. Something like The Empty Man. Fucking insane movie. Just go in blind. Just expect it to be a kind of a horror movie, but then just, whoa, weird shit happens. Anyway, that's all. If you have any opinions, please chuck them down in the comments. Do you think that twist culture for movies are dead? Do you think it's all about spoiling Marvel movies these days? It is, but still, I mean, you know. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Adios. By the way, do you know Harold Ramis's ghost is in a new... I didn't watch that fucking movie, I'm not going to.